From monstrous V8s to lightweight track-ready warriors, these legends didn't just set records, they shattered them. These are some of the best muscle cars of the 1960s. The 1962 Pontiac Catalina Superduty. The 1962 Pontiac Catalina and the Grand Prix were never intended to be muscle cars, mainly because the term didn't exist yet. However, powerful, full-sized cars played a key role in racing during the early 1960s, with models like the Ford Galaxy, Chevy Impala, and Chrysler 300 dominating tracks and drag strips. Pontiac was no exception, establishing itself as a force in the motorsports before the AMA's ban on factory-backed racing took effect in 1963. Even before this restriction, Pontiac had already laid the groundwork for the muscle car era with its impressive line of Super Duty engines. At the heart of these high-performance Pontiacs was a 421 cubic inch Super Duty engine, rated at 405 horsepower. After March 1962, Pontiac enhanced this engine by increasing valve size and improving intake flow, boosting its capabilities even further. To complement the power boost, Pontiac also took steps to reduce weight, equipping select Catalina and Grand Prix models with aluminum body panels and hoods. Production numbers for these high-performance Super Duty Pontiacs were limited, with fewer than 200 units built. The 1963 Plymouth Savoy Max Wedge. Chrysler's decision to shift to smaller-sized vehicles created challenges, as Virgil Exner's original larger car styling had to be hastily adapted, resulting in somewhat awkward proportions. Despite this, Chrysler quickly refined its mid-size B-body lineup for 1963, with Plymouth benefiting the most from the updated look. The design team, now under the direction of Elwood Engel, gave Plymouth's models a much-needed refresh, while engineers in Auburn Hills worked on boosting performance. Leading the charge on the engineering side was Tom Hoover, who, along with his team, developed the Max Wedge big block engine. Originally introduced in 1962 as the Superstock 413 for Plymouth and the Ramcharger 413 for Dodge, this engine began Chrysler's dominance in muscle car performance. The following year, the Max Wedge was expanded to 426 cubic inches, pushing its output to an impressive 425 horsepower. Paired with the TorqueFlite 727, the industry's first 3-speed automatic transmission, these lightweight B-body Plymouths became nearly unbeatable on the track. Plymouth's redesigned B-body cars proved to be a success, with sales increasing by 44% in 1963 compared to the previous year, largely due to Engel's sleeker styling. Despite their success, Max Wedge-equipped Plymouths remained extremely rare, with only around 250 units produced that year. The 1964 Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. In 1963, car manufacturers still relied on large, full-size models to dominate NASCAR and drag racing. For Ford, this meant putting their faith in the Galaxy 500, which featured the newly developed 427 cubic inch big block FE engine. While fast, the Galaxy wasn't quite fast enough to compete in the growing muscle car race. Ford needed something smaller, lighter, and more agile. That solution arrived in 1964 with the creation of the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt was based on Ford's mid-size Fairlane platform, which had been introduced in 1962. Ford equipped it with a powerful 427 cubic inch FE big block engine capable of producing 425 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. Despite being produced in limited numbers, only 100 units were built in 1964. Of the 100, 49 were equipped with 4-speed transmissions, while the remaining 51 had automatic gearboxes. Although NASCAR deemed the Thunderbolt illegal for competition, the car found its success elsewhere, It went on to secure the 1964 NHRA Superstock Championship, proving its incredible performance on the drag strip. The 1965 Pontiac GTO Tri-Power. While the 1968 Pontiac GTO gained attention for its sleek Endura bumper, which earned it the title the Car of the Year from Motor Trend, it was the earlier models that did the heavy lifting, particularly the 1965 version. That year, the GTO's performance was refined with upgrades, including improved brakes, heavier duty shocks, and a sturdier anti-sway bar. The base engine saw a boost, rising to 335 horsepower, while the 389 cubic inch tri-powered engine reached an impressive 360 horsepower. The changes and enhancements to the 1965 GTO helped propel its sales to new heights, with 75,342 units sold, a more than two-fold increase from the previous year. The 1966 Dodge Coronet Street Hemi. In 1966, Chrysler offered the 426 cubic inch Hemi engine to everyday customers. Before this, the Hemi was exclusively a racing engine used only in competition settings. The decision to make it available for street cars was directly influenced by NASCAR's actions. After Richard Petty's dominating performance in 1964, driving a Plymouth with a Hemi engine, NASCAR banned the engine from racing for the 1965 season. The message was clear: if you want to race it, you have to offer it to the public. In response, Chrysler approved the 426 Hemi for production, allowing anyone who could afford it to buy one. The 1968 AMC AMX. American Motors entered the muscle car scenes a bit late compared to the bigger players in the industry. While other car makers had already shifted their focus towards performance cars for the younger market, American Motors had long been more focused on family-friendly vehicles, branding themselves as the car for the human race. A few years earlier, the company had shaken up the American auto industry by pushing for smaller cars, unintentionally paving the way for the rise of muscle cars in the 1960s. However, by 1968, American Motors struggled to catch up with its competitors. To remedy this, AMC introduced two groundbreaking models designed by Dick Teague, the Javelin and the AMX. The AMX, in particular, was a standout, combining sleek style with serious performance. It was a compact, two-seat sports car, priced closer to the Mustang than the Corvette, yet still able to go toe-to-toe with both. The 1968 AMX offered a 390 cubic inch engine with 315 horsepower, delivering impressive acceleration while maintaining a relatively light weight of just 3,000 pounds. The 1969 Chevy COPO 427 cubic inch Camaro. The COPO, or Central Office Production Order, was originally a system used by Chevy to make special equipment for non-performance cars. But clever dealerships soon figured out that they could use this order to sneak Chevy's top engines into the lighter Camaro model, effectively creating a factory-built supercar. The COPO 427 Camaro was powered by a 427 cubic inch big block Chevy V8, an engine typically reserved for the top models like the Corvette and larger Chevys. In 1969, there were strict limitations on engine sizes for smaller cars like the Camaro, which made this move even more exceptional. The 1969 COPO Camaro with the 427 cubic inch big block is often hailed as one of the high points of Chevy performance in the 1960s. Also, there were two different versions of the COPO 427 Camaro. The COPO 9561 came with the solid lifter L72 427 iron block engine, and about 1,015 of these were made. The rarer version of the COPO 9560 featured the aluminum ZL1 427 cubic inch engine with only 69 units built. the 1969 Ford Boss 429 Mustang. The Boss 429 wasn't initially intended to be a high-performance street car, but rather a vehicle designed for NASCAR, which meant it was built to be detuned for street use, but could easily dominate with the right adjustments to its gearing, exhaust, and tune-up. Ford needed a way to modify their Hemi engine for racing, and the Mustang was used to make that happen. Only 859 units of the 1969 429 Mustang were made that year, and 499 more in 1970. While the engine was officially rated at 375 horsepower, it didn't take much to unlock even more potential from the Boss 429's power plant. Notably, the 1969 model had a hydraulic cam, which was later swapped out for a mechanical tappet in the 1970 version. Because the engine bay of the regular Mustang wasn't wide enough to accommodate the massive Boss 429 engine, Ford had to send these cars to CarCraft, a company based in Brighton, Michigan. The 1969 Dodge Hemi Daytona. By the late 1960s, everything was in place for Detroit's horsepower wars to hit their peak. The post-war generation had grown up. The space race was in full swing with its cutting-edge advancements, gasoline remained affordable, and motorsports, both on the drag strip and high-speed tracks, had captured the public's imagination. This was the perfect moment for Dodge to execute a bold strategy to dominate NASCAR. Their plan? Build and sell 503 highly specialized Dodge Chargers to the public, ensuring eligibility for the competition and creating one of the most legendary muscle cars of the decade. The Dodge Daytona's design was extreme, featuring a sharply pointed nose cone, refined through wind tunnel testing, and an enormous rear wing that looked more suited for a supersonic jet fighter than a street car. Beyond its radical aerodynamics, Dodge also offered the Daytona with Chrysler's formidable 426 cubic inch Hemi engine, a power plant that had already given NASCAR plenty of headaches. The 1970 Chevelle SS 454. When the Chevy Malibu was outfitted with its most aggressive form, the Chevelle SS, it became one of the most dominant and sought-after muscle cars of its time, a status it would maintain for years. In 1970, introducing the massive 454 cubic inch big block engine took the Chevelle SS to another level. Chevrolet offered the 454 cubic inch engine under the RPO Z15 option package, which allowed buyers to order the Chevelle SS 454 in one of two configurations. The LS5 version delivered 360 horsepower, but the true beast was the LS6, featuring solid lifters, an 11-to-1 compression ratio, cowl induction, and an astonishing 450 horsepower, the highest output ever offered in a production vehicle at the time. Despite its legendary status, only 4,475 Chevelle SS models were built with the LS6 package, making it a highly coveted classic. What model cars would you have loved to be on this list? Let us know in the comments.